Here are 5 players you need to draft before they break out in 2023. First up is Christian Watson. Christian Watson is coming into his second year in the NFL, which is a good mark of a breakout player. And he was really good after he came back from injury in 2022. So from week 10 on, he was the wide receiver 7. And yes, that was off of the back of a lot of touchdowns. He had a very outlier amount of touchdowns, which we would expect to regress as far as, how many touchdowns per route, per target, stuff like that. However, even with that, he was 12th in yards per route run as a rookie. So he was demanding targets. He was getting yards per his routes. And, as we see him go into his second year, we can only really expect him to get better. He's got a new system as well. So he's got Jordan Love coming in, and that could be a worry for some. But to me, I think he's got a chance to establish his role as the number 1. I think the team absolutely wants him to be the number 1, and he's going to be on the field for pretty much every drop back that Love is going to have. And the team wants him to be the number 1 option based on what we've seen so far. And I think he's got every chance to do it, and I think he's got the talent to do it.
He has extremely high upside this year, and you're not having to pay a ton for him like you are the other second-year receivers like Olave and Garrett Wilson. You can get him in like the 5th, 6th round, which is pretty cheap for a guy with that much upside going into his second year. All right. My first breakout is going to be J.K. Dobbins. So this is his second year removed from the ACL injury, which is typically when the year you see guys sort of rebound fully from that injury. During his career, he's averaged 5.9 yards per carry, which is as elite as you can be. That is fantastic. So the Ravens got a new offensive coordinator that should pass the ball to running backs more. Todd Monken's last year in the NFL was in 2019 with the Cleveland Browns, and they had 115 passes to the running back. Nick Chubb got 49, Kareem Hunt got 44, and then there's some spread out through a couple other backup running backs. Well, the Ravens only threw the ball to their running back position 50 times last year. So you're looking at double to a little over double the amount of running back targets for Ravens running backs. They've already talked about during the offseason and during training camp how they want to get the running backs utilized in the passing game. So that's just another step forward towards that. Dobbins, his 3 years at Ohio State, he had over 20 catches in each season, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when you're only playing like 12 and 13 games versus 17 games, 20 catches, 23 catches, that's actually a pretty good amount. He is yet to do so in the NFL. He hasn't had a 20-catch season. His highest was 18, I believe. And that's simply because Greg Roman, just the offense they ran, did not design running back touches through the air. They just ran the ball down your throat. So I don't think it's outlandish to say Dobbins could catch maybe 30 to 40 passes this season. His career high is at 18. So I don't think 30 is too big of a stretch. And it doesn't seem like much, but if you're adding an extra 20 to 30 catches in there, that's 20 to 30 points in PPR, not counting the yards. So that's actually a significant increase in points for Dobbins. And plus, the Ravens is just a good offense who should score more and should get in the red zone a lot, which should give him a lot of opportunities to score some touchdowns.
I think he has a chance to have his best season. And one of the worries is that he's going to get vultured at the goal line, which will happen. And it's going to be annoying when you see it. But I think the production is still going to be there, regardless of maybe having a capped upside. Like, I don't see him being a top 5 running back this year. But for how late you're getting him like about like 20 to 20 or 20 to 30, anywhere from RB20 to RB30, and he can absolutely beat that ADP. In 2020, which is really his only season, and he didn't even play that full season. He was the running back 21, and he dealt with injury that whole season. So he beat, as a rookie, when he was injured, he beat the ADP that he's going at now, which really doesn't make sense to me. And if you only go from week 11 on when he was healthy, he was the RB7 in points per game. So really, I see a lot of upside and really not a lot of risk with Dobbins. I think he's got a safe workload. Real quick, only 2% of you guys who are watching right now are subscribed. We'd really appreciate it if you could just subscribe to get that number up, because that is pretty low, and we want to hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you could help us do that, we'd really appreciate it. Anyways, back to the video. Next up, we got Jahan Dotson, another second-year wide receiver. Thing about Jahan Dotson is maybe we don't like the offense quite as much as the Packers. However, he was drafted with more draft capital, so we expect a little bit more out of Jahan Dotson. I think they're going to try to target him a lot. He was drafted with the 16th pick overall in 2022, and he had a pretty decent rookie season. Started off pretty good, and then he dealt with a hamstring injury, which lingered pretty much the whole season. He came back towards the end and sort of brought it back together a little bit, but it was a riddled with injury season, but he showed some promise, and that's why you're able to get him on the cheap this year. That combined with the fact that Terry McLaurin is on the team, and McLaurin is just a consistent 1,100-yard guy, but he is dealing with injury this year, and he's got a turf toe problem, which can be a lingering issue, and I think it's going to allow Jahan Dotson to get off to a really strong start of the season. He's already established a connection with Sam Howell in the preseason. If you watch those preseason games, Jahan Dotson is getting targeted like it feels like every other play, and Sam Howell actually looks pretty decent. I know it's just preseason and we can't read too much into it, but we don't think it's going to be a disaster from the looks of it. Sam Howell so far in the preseason of the 3 games, 28 for 37, 265 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Plus, he can get it done on the ground to extend drives. So I think there's a chance that he's actually a decent quarterback, which is all he needs. Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson were good last year with Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke. They really haven't had good quarterback play on that team in a while. So I think Jahan Dotson can get it done. I think he's going to be better than he was last year, and hopefully he can stay injury-free and establish a good connection early on.
All right, next up for our breakouts, we have Diontae Johnson. Now, I already know if you had him last year, you're probably like, what? He can't be a breakout. But DJ has been the wide receiver 21, the wide receiver 8, and the wide receiver 28 in the 3 years of his career. He's had some growing pains with the new rookie quarterback, Kenny Pickett, last year. Also, I think the Steelers as a team threw the ball a lot less last year to sort of protect Kenny Pickett. If you look at the past 3 seasons, 3 years ago in 2020, they led the league in pass attempts. In 2021, they were 4th in the league in passing attempts. And then if you look at last year, they were all the way down at 17th in the NFL in pass attempts. So that's on average like 120 less passes that they threw last year compared to the previous 2 years. So I think with Kenny Pickett getting another year in that offense, another year in the league under his belt, I do think they'll kind of unleash him a little bit more, and I think they'll pass a little bit more. This year, I think the only difference between his 2020 season and last year's season, if you look at him, he had within 3 catches of each other. He had within 40 yards of this season. But in his 2021 season, he had 7 touchdowns compared to 0 touchdowns last year. He's had 147 targets, 169 targets, and 143 targets in his 3 seasons so far. That is an elite number of targets that he's earned all 3 seasons of his career. You cannot expect a receiver to get that many targets again and get 0 touchdowns. Having a second-year quarterback will help that a lot. I think his floor in full PPR, knowing that he's going to receive at minimum 140 targets, has to be wide receiver 18 to 20. And that's his absolute floor, like if he doesn't score that many touchdowns again this year. But luckily, you don't have to draft him that high. He's going off the board around wide receiver 30, depending on what site you use. I know ESPN just did an update, and he's like a little bit higher on their system now, but I know Sleeper and Yahoo, he's still going super late, like around the 70s and 80s. So that's wide receiver 30 off the board. So I feel like you're basically investing nothing to have a potential top 15, top 20 receiver in full PPR with a really safe floor.
He's going to get – I think there's no way he doesn't get any touchdowns this year. Like the amount, I think he broke a record last year with the amount of targets he had with no touchdowns. Kenny Pickett threw, I think, 7 touchdowns in 13 games played. There's no way he's that bad this year. I mean, he was a rookie. You can sort of excuse it, and he's been the preseason MVP so far. I mean, you can't totally overlook that. In my opinion, it does show progression because, regardless of if he's playing backups or whatever, he's looked more confident as a passer, and I think that gives a chance for Diontae Johnson to not only just be a value, but to, like we say, be a breakout. If Pickett does take the next step, Diontae Johnson, with his floor, if he can add the touchdowns to it, he's going to be amazing, especially in a PPR. All right. And our final breakout is Chris Olave. Now, we know you've probably heard this a lot. Chris Olave is, a big breakout target. People are drafting him in the late second, early third. Usually in the early third. He was drafted with the 11th pick overall by the Saints, and he is the number one guy there. You don't need to worry about Michael Thomas. The reports on Michael Thomas are mixed at best, and pretty much everything we're hearing is that he doesn't look like the old Michael Thomas. On the other hand, the reports about Olave are that he looks amazing and that he looks like a great route runner like he did last year. I mean, there's nothing. All you need to do is go look at the tape from last year. He was 7th in yards per route run, which as a rookie, that's an incredible feat in and of itself, especially with the quarterback play that he had. So he's getting an upgrade there at quarterback. He's getting Derek Carr, who can support a number one wide receiver. We've seen it in the past multiple times. Just go back and look at his previous seasons. Go look at Waller. Go look at Devontae Adams. Go look at Michael Crabtree. And, he also had the 5th most unrealized air yards in 2022. So he got over 1,000 yards last year as a rookie. He was on pace to have the most. He probably would have been the offensive rookie of the year, beating out Garrett Wilson. He was on pace to outperform him if he didn't have the injury problems. Only played 15 games. But those unrealized air yards, he had 845, which was 5th in the NFL. So if the upgraded quarterback play means he can connect on some more of those, I think that he can absolutely outperform his ADP, even in the early third, even in the late second. I think he should be looked at more where Garrett Wilson is, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I love Chris Olave this year.
And I think he has a chance to, next year, I think he's going to be looked at in the first round, as long as nothing goes wrong with injury or anything like that. Not that we can predict that. Again, though, a lot of our picks here, we got second-year wide receivers. Look at what the second-year wide receivers did in the past. I mean, just to look at last year, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, they had pretty good rookie seasons. You go back and look at it.
Amon-Ra.
Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown. They had pretty good rookie seasons, but then go look what happened in their second year. They absolutely ascended, even though Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle were the second options on their team. So, yes, there were red flags there, but it didn't matter because the ascension that happens in year 2, especially for first-round rookies, is pretty consistent, and it's a trend we see, and you got to shoot for that upside in your draft. Grab some of these breakouts if you want to win your league. Anything else, Aaron?
Nope, that's all I got.
Make sure you get at least a few of these high upside guys in your draft for this weekend. Good luck on your drafts. If you did enjoy the video, consider subscribing. Only 2% of you guys are subscribed. If we could get that number up and help us send 1,000 subscribers, we'd really appreciate it. We have been the Fantasy Bros, and we're out.